In this section, we want to begin to introduce to you the complex plane. Now, do you guys remember what a complex number was? It was some number that had both a real and an imaginary part, where we are able to designate that imaginary component with a small little cursive I a little bit, or italicized I. So I have 4 different complex numbers listed over here. Well, what we want to do is to go ahead and learn how to graph those on some type of a system. And the system we use is a crossing grid pattern, where we'll have the real axis along the horizontal and the imaginary axis across the vertical. Real similar to our XY grid, but this is our imaginary or our complex plane. So how do we graph points in a complex plane? Well, let's look at both the real part and the imaginary part of each of these complex numbers. In the first one, the real part is a 3. So I will go over 3 units, 1, 2, and 3. And then I have 4 units in the positive direction on the imaginary axis, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's where I would map Z1. Now Z2, notice that the real component is a -1, so I'll go backwards -1. Well, not backwards -1, that would be going forward, but back a -1 or a back of 1. Maybe that's the right way of saying it. I would go forward to -1, which is backwards. All right, sorry. -1 on the real axis and down 2 units. Sorry, just a little math humor when you can get it in there. The third point, notice that it is a complex number, but complex numbers don't always have to have both the real or the imaginary part. In this case, the imaginary would be 0 units on the imaginary side. So I can go along -3 and up 0 units. And the last one, z to the 4th, notice that it only has an imaginary part of the complex number. So the real part's 0, and I'll go down 4 units. And that's where my 4th point would be. So there you have it. That's how we graph complex numbers on what we are creating a complex plane.